Hey there, Mark Brown. So I got to tell you, I went back to a principle I used to do early on, and I have a secret of getting more laughs quickly. The quickest, fastest way to get more laughs. I put it to the test because I was under pressure. We just finished Game Changers. I was off to Spain to speak to an industry I've never spoken to, automotive after parts CEOs in Spain.
Aftermarket parts. Okay, gotcha.
Aftermarket auto parts, and I was like, okay, I need to connect because I'm on the outsider. So what can I do to connect and get some laughs up front? So in the old days when I didn't have enough content, I would overcompensate by doing my homework. Well, here's the situation. I didn't have time to do that homework that I usually like to do because I was so busy. I did interview them 2 or 3 times, had meetings, got websites, etc. But this is my favorite humor secret. Let's check it out.
Anyone can give a presentation. Few deliver unforgettable presentations. What's the difference? You're about to find out. Welcome to the Unforgettable Presentations Podcasts with your hosts, world champion speakers and coaches Mark Brown.
Your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
And Darren LaCroix.
Stage time, stage time, stage time.
Ready for some powerful presentation ahas? Let's dive right in.
All right, Mark Brown, welcome, and welcome Chris McGuire, my secret.
That's it. A human secret. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Doing
So
great.
great. So you got company today too, because I guess a partner today beside you.
My cat. Yeah, can you see my cat? There we go. There she is.
Yep.
She'll get a writing credit. So cool.
Yeah, it's my writing partner.
So I was a little overstressed. This, to be honest, this was my highest paid speech to date. I was excited. It was international. There was a lot going on. And I remember back to my early days, what did I do when I really wanted to customize? I wanted to get some humor right up front. Because Mark, I say that until we connect, we must connect first before we can educate, entertain, or inspire. So I'm speaking to a group of CEOs after dinner, which isn't my favorite time to give content. So I knew I had to bring in some levity. So in the old days, I hired this woman expert. I think you know her, Chris, Katie Grady. And
Sure.
she did some writing for me. And what was cool is I have my comedy mindset, but she came from a different angle. She saw it from a different angle. So knowing the stress and the pressure, I said, you know what? I got to call in the expert. So I called Chris McGuire. I'm like, Chris, here's a situation. I need some custom humor. So I want to connect up front. I want to connect to their industry. I want to connect to the location. And then I'll go into my content, still connecting it back to then. But connecting is critical. And when you can do it with laughs and humor, it's beautiful. So Chris McGuire, let's just walk people through the process. So we get industry and we get location. How can we get more laughs? What did you go through? And then I have a recording of it with my slides. I don't have video, but I have the slides that I showed, and I was wearing a wire. I'm still waiting for video clips to come in. But anyway, so I'll show everyone the end results. But Chris, what's the process?
Well, I always start the way I look at it is like, what does everybody in the room have in common? They're all in the same industry. They're all in the same place. So you're all in Spain. You drill down. So you start like super high up. You're all in Spain. You're in this little town called, is it Sitges? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I had to learn and I had to say it 32 times before I said it right. Sieges.
Sitges. Oh,
There's a T. I didn't know how
Gotcha.
to pronounce it.
so Sitges. So you're in Spain. Barcelona's there. We didn't even need to get to that. Sitges. And then there's the venue. And so you were at a very specific venue that had some historical relevance. And then everybody in the room is in the extremely hilarious aftermarket car parts industry. So, hey, let me share for a second. I'll show you sort of like what I did. Can you give me share or no?
Give me a quick sec.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically you start with where you are, right? So I gave you this little is this the right one? Yeah, sure. I gave you this little thing up front because I also knew you were busy.
Mm-hmm.
So I did, you start with some research. What is there significant about stages? What is significant about the venue you're at? So do a little quick research. So I gave you bullet points so you could understand the jokes, number one. And number two, maybe they would inspire you. Sorry, I'm going to move the cat. Maybe they'd inspire you to something else. So these were just the bullet points on stages. It's very old. They have a horror and science fiction film festival every year. It's a very progressive artist community. It's beautiful. You Google it, you see what it looks like. It's known for its beaches. The venue was, now how do you pronounce this? Finca Mas Soler?
Yeah, you got me. I still don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah. So the venue was in a grand estate. It was kind of a Renaissance themed estate. Used to have a casino. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, Darren's from Vegas. There's got to be a casino connection. I don't think I ever made it, but like I'm making you're making connections. Just found a few things about it. It's very close. You want to know how close it is to Steges. So if you reference it, there's likelihood that people had been there. Mm-hmm. And that the venue's old. And then on the last day, I went to the website. Yep. And I read their material, man. It was very dry material about the challenges the industry faces, which is basically electric cars, because electric cars don't break down like regular cars. Mm-hmm. So they sell less parts. And then there were all these EU issues that were very important to their business that I didn't really understand, but I got the sense that there was an antagonism. So I knew that if you had a punchline about the EU, it would probably get a good laugh because they're probably frustrated with them. And so they had an you look at the itinerary, what's happening. They had breakout sessions it looked like they had breakout sessions like every 2 hours. So there was a lot of networking, and for me, I'm like, how long can you talk about, brake pads, and that was just kind of my initial thought when you've got like, breakout sessions every like 2 hours. It's like, what the hell do you even talk about after 10 minutes? And then they had like, there was a field trip that they were going to take, which was to Benedictine monastery. The ADI, it was the name of the company. So now I, have a little bit of information. Last year's event was at Lake Como. So I thought that would be fun when, I'm making associations. So when I think about Lake Como, I think about George Clooney, right? Because he lives in Lake Como. They're giving out awards. Award show jokes are like, you can make fun of their awards. I'm sure the people who are there are very proud that they got the awards, but it's not exactly the Oscars, so that's an area that's for fun too. So just initially I looked at this and I thought, horror film sounds like a fun area. Gambling. And I don't think I got any gambling jokes, but I thought that was a fun area. Generally, the fact that Vegas is very new and this place is extremely old. I just started thinking about like literally about car parts. And I just started thinking about their business, which is they make money when cars break down. So those are the initial things that kind of bubbled up in my head. Yeah. And
Chris,
then I just started
in real quick. So, Mark, any thoughts from your perspective? So, if you're listening to this, This is the process that Chris went through. He's building lists of ideas and bullet points. What was helpful to me, Chris, is seeing the bullet points right in front of me. You took all this information and summarized it, which was super helpful to me looking for those facts and what I'm going to make light of and how I can use it and bring it into the conversation. So for everyone, he researched the event itself, he researched the location itself, and he researched the industry. This is something we should know whether we turn it into humor or not. We need to do this. But what I loved is investing in, and I literally paid you, Chris. You didn't do me a favor on this. I literally invested in Chris because it was a high paid speech and I needed to connect. So it just made sense that he could, he's got this brain. And if you don't know Chris, and I apologize, Chris, we didn't even really introduce you.
That's okay. No problem.
He's a Hollywood comedy writer. He's produced the Martha Stewart Snoop Dogg TV show, which I did use that as talking about partnerships. That was huge. That was fascinating in research.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just like you just want to, like, I worked in late night. That's probably the most relevant thing to what I did for Darren. Is I worked in late night. Every day I come in and the material is the news. So I research the news. I read the news stories, read top news stories of the day. Based on those stories, you write a bunch of jokes. So with this, and you can do this fast. I mean, these days with ChatGPT,
you can do it fast.
Honestly, with the research tools that are like available to us now, like with AI and stuff like that, you can do research pretty fast. Like I think here I asked it to give me a list of, mainly looking for funny words. Give me a list of the most popular aftermarket auto parts. And they were all stuff that you would common sense, but I didn't need to spend 20 minutes thinking about it. I gave it to me in 45 seconds. It's like tires, brakes, batteries, air filters, the exhaust systems, all that stuff. So I'm just scanning those things for what are funny words.
Yeah. So Mark, what's your perspective or questions pop up at this point? We'll go deeper,
Well, first of all, I stepped back. What I saw was Chris would start high level. What's the industry, what's the company, and what's the location? So you start high, then you begin to drill down step by step your research on the company, on the physical city, on the location, what the city known for. So the process that I picked up was, I know it's going to be in this town about this event, and that's a company. But if I research each individual piece, and as Chris says, try to make connections and find out what's unique, what's interesting, and how can I take that interesting fact or tidbit and make it funny. So that part of the process, I think, is great for me as a presenter who is not known to be funny. I'm pretty funny looking, but to learn from a pro who is doing this, right? I know, bad joke time for somebody who's not very funny. But I realize the process is one of doing the work and digging deep. And I love what you said, Darren. It need not be only about humor. The idea is, if we're going to research, let's dig deep. And the best part of this for me is the idea of finding interesting or maybe little known facts about the company, the location, the city that may be interesting that you could use in a serious way, but you could also get more laughs by using it in a funny way. And I tell you one thing, Chris, you said that really went ding in my brain. I wrote down, can you connect the location to well-known celebrities and make that kind of funny? I would never have thought George Clooney and see just, never made that connection. But by doing research, we can find unique information that'll help us as presenters not only stand out and be unforgettable because of our unique approach, but to find ways to uncover the funny in the midst of that. That will make you unforgettable. And I'm all in. I'm learning right now. This is really, for me, quite fascinating. And I'm very eager to learn more.
Well, Mark, that's thank you. And that it is a process. It's literally, you do people, places, things, events, sayings.
People, places, things,
people,
events.
places, things, events, cliches, sayings, or whatever. So you start with people, right? Well, I start with place because it's the thing everybody has in common. You're in the same place. So you start with place. Then when you always go to people, So you just go, okay, what people are associated with this thing? And it turned out it used to be a monastery. They were going to a monastery, and this place used to be a monastery too, the place that Darren was speaking in.
Right.
And also I made an assumption that I was right about, was that most of the attendees were going to be men.
Ah, yes.
Right. So now I have a lot of male energy going on, where it's like you have a monastery. So the joke that I wrote, I don't know if you did it. The one was, you're going, on Sunday, you're going to go to the Montserrat monastery just in case you want to hang around with even more men, So,
So Chris,
just basically on the observation that it's just a sausage party. So then
Chris,
you
real quick,
look at.
let me just
Oh
play.
yeah, go ahead.
So again, this is an actual clip from it. Listen up.
Thursday, you're going to go tomorrow, you're going to go to the Monastery, which is a historical location run by a group of Benedictine monks, just in case you wanted to be around more men.
Oh, you got an applause break on
In
that.
case you didn't get enough of that. Just, really thought that through. That's awesome.
Yeah, that one killed.
Awesome.
They know, you know what I mean? So the only thing I said to Darren was I tagged it and I said, just make sure there isn't some sensitivity because of inclusion, the fact that it is all men. So I think it's a good joke. I think people laugh. It feels pretty harmless, but just run it by the event planner so you don't have an HR problem afterwards.
Yeah, great point. Always got to run it by the money person, the decision maker. And
if you want to come back, yeah.
If you want the check to clear too.
Yeah, exactly. So people
Really
drill
quick.
down to, then you, go ahead.
Really quick. What was interesting, Chris, that I didn't even get a chance to tell you is unknown to me. They actually asked me the afternoon before, hey, we want to go through all your slides. I was like, what?
Oh, really?
But I was like, okay, at least I will see if there's a landmine I didn't know I was going to step on. And they gave me one thing that enhanced it, one joke that enhanced it that I changed. I'll tell you that after because it was one of the on-site location jokes I created. And then they gave me one that I should say, and I didn't want to say, and I let them override my gut feeling, and that was on me. That was my bad. But we'll get to that in a second.
It did not work? Okay, all right, great. But yeah, so you start with place because it's harmless. It's harmless. There's no one's going to get mad if you're telling a joke about being at this monastery, or this town Steges. It's harmless, and it's connecting because everybody's there and everybody's a fish out of water. Like when we were all in Vegas for Game Changers, most of the people there were fish out of water. So everything seemed weird and fun and different. So the same thing is going to be true when you're traveling. So if you're playing the fish out of water, everyone else feels like a fish out of water. So you've got connection with that. When you go to people are just like, it's not as, for me, it's trickier, but it works. Is now you're talking about like famous people is always a good one because people are fascinated by it. And usually there's some area of humor. And the other one would be, this is the dangerous one, which is the people at the event. So a lot of times you go to these things, Darren, and I don't know, Mark, if you've had this, but you've certainly had stand-up gigs, Darren, where they're like, oh yeah, the boss wants you to make fun of them. Right? Now that could either be a good idea or a terrible idea.
Mm-hmm.
But because now you're in roast territory, now you're roasting. And that's what I call dark magic. It's very, very tricky. So I try to, in an event where I want to come back and I'm making a, nice paycheck, 4 or 5 figures, whatever it is, I would avoid that as much as possible, especially if I had 45 minutes of a speech I could give,
Mark?
That's interesting because I had for a while there, I was doing trucking association conventions. And there was one, I think it was Tennessee Trucking Association, and the CEO, the president, got to know the guy. His name is Dave, had a really good time. And I was going to do it, their breakfast opening keynote. I was going to do a joke about Dave. It was the company's like 80th anniversary. And I was going to do a joke about Dave. The cake is here, blow out the candles because you were here when we first got started. That's how old he was. But I ran it by him first, not by somebody else. I made sure he was cool with it. I did it. It landed. He laughed the loudest. Everybody laughed. It was great. But I had to be careful not to offend Dave and make him look at the old guy who's been there for 100 years, right? So
that was a great instinct. That's a great instinct, is if you tell, because they're going to look at Dave. If Dave is laughing, they'll laugh. If Dave looks pissed off, they're going to get nervous. They're going to close up.
I didn't want a Will Smith, so I figured I'd just...
Exactly. You have to be careful about these things. And the eight, like when somebody's that old, that's usually a safe area. The safest areas are haircuts and what they wear.
Really?
Yeah, because you can change it. So if you're going to make fun of my glasses are big, right? Well, I can get a new pair of glasses. If you don't like the pink shirt I'm wearing, I can get another shirt. I'm aware that I have no hair. You know what I mean? If somebody wears a ponytail, you can make fun of that because they can change it. So that's usually an extremely safe area. If somebody's known for wearing Hawaiian shirts all the time, whatever, things like that. Everybody's got a fashion sense. And it may or may not lead to humor, but it's a safe place because they can change it.
Okay.
Right. So Chris,
making fun of weight is really difficult unless they've got a good sense of humor. Yeah.
So Chris, let's go a little deeper on the horror film joke. So tell me the process, because I did not see that connection at all. And I don't know if you want me to play the joke and then we go back.
Yeah, play the joke first. I don't know how it went over. So let's see.
All right. So this is the end joke, and then we'll talk about the process. And Chris, I was actually surprised. I did 10 whole minutes, 10 minutes and 5 seconds just about them before I went into my content. I was like,
that's impressive. You got your money's worth.
I probably owe you some money. All right.
I don't know. Okay. And International Horror Film Festival. You might not know this, but this is actually a thing here. This is the truth. It is a thing here that it is the home of the Horror Film Festival. And I started thinking about what you guys do, and I realized it must be really awkward when you go to a horror film. Check this out. Think about it. Think about this.
We could go through it. Did it?
You're probably the only people who cheat.
So it was a clip.
Okay.
It was a clip from a horror film where the car wouldn't start. So it was a clip. So I literally grabbed a screen grab from Fandango.
It's Poltergeist, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Or Friday the 13th. One of those movies.
Friday the 13th. And the car wouldn't start, and they're panicking. And then
the only people who cheer when the car won't start. We sold another one. How cool is that? Well, I did some research too in some horror films and what were the cars, and check this out. Friday the 13th has a thing about this. Oh, by the way, one man's horror show is another man's business plan. I think you need to get them as a supplier or a partner or something. Think about that. 1970 Dodge Polara, Friday the 13th. 1977 Chevy Impala. So this is educational tonight too. So a little bit of education. And they even said it on readit.com. They said the best ads for keeping your maintenance up on your vehicles. You got to support them, the Horror Film Festival here. And we got some new suppliers. Round of applause again for our new suppliers. Sweet. And so here's a list of the suppliers, and I think you're missing one. I think you need to add a new one, the Jason mask. So, all right, that was funnier in my head. All right, that's fine, I'm okay with that. So awards, we had the Aftermarket Professional of the Year and then Supplier of the Year, and that was...
So if you're listening to audio, I showed a picture of all their suppliers right off of the
Logos.
website, and then I added a picture of a hockey mask. So if you get a chance, check out the YouTube clip. It might make a little more sense. But Chris, so what's the thought process on that?
Yeah.
And I didn't even connect it to suppliers. You saw that connection, and
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. They thought I was done, and then I came back.
Well, now I remember how I did this. So right here, I knew there was going to be humor in that they're really happy when cars break down because that's their whole business. So the joke I wrote, immediately I'm thinking, oh, the joke is somebody picked you up at the airport and the car broke down on the way to the gig. And so that was the first joke that I wrote, which was, you guys nice enough to send a car to pick me up at the airport. Unfortunately, on the way here, I was stranded when the alternator broke down, which is better news for you than it was for me. So, that's an okay joke, but it got me in the area of cars breaking down. And again, then I got to, you hear that story and think, yes, we sold another one. Then Darren, you had this joke. I live in Las Vegas. Have you been? You love it. A car battery only lasts 3.5 months. It's so hot in Vegas that a car battery, car batteries don't last long. So they would obviously be happy about that. And then the horror film. So anyway, that just got me to the area. That thinking got me to the area of horror films, because in horror films or movies in general, where cars don't start in the movie, it's just a plot point in movies. Somebody gets in the car, they got to get away from somebody, and they try to turn over the car, and it won't turn over. So I don't know. I think I might have Googled something like all the times cars won't start in movies, and it came back with like all the Friday the 13th movies. It was like a Reddit thread.
No.
And so at the end of the Reddit thread, somebody had a joke saying, this is the best ad for buying a new car, basically, which I thought was funny. So just based on that, I was just kind of like, oh, there's a horror film festival, Friday the 13th. I just lucked into it. And then I'm like, oh, you guys cheer. You're the only people that cheer when the car won't start. That was basically how I got to it.
And what a great...
So it was just making associations in my head.
Yeah, and Mark, I know you got to bounce to go start another speech, virtual presentation. So thanks for being here, Mark. Do what you got to do. Focus. Thanks for being here, and we'll to be continued.
Well, one last question for Chris and for you, Darren. I see this little by little drill down process, and it may be a premature question, but how low can you go? I mean, how deep do you go? Is that how deep you choose to go, depending on how many connections you can find between the client, the association, the city, the little known facts. I wrote down people, places, things, events, sayings, which I'm sure you'll drill down on, but you have to decide for yourself just how far you want to go, depending on how much humor or comedy, how much humor you want to use, and how important some of the facts are. For me, it's again a learning experience. So is there a limit, or do you say, I go 3 levels deep, or what do you think? How far do you go, Chris?
Yeah, it's like Inception. You go 4 levels deep. No, it's literally like dreams within dreams. No, I go, I look, at the end of the day, it's like the deeper you go, the more likely you are to find something really like special and different. But the audience isn't looking for that.
Okay.
They're looking for the surface stuff. In a gig like this, you want the surface material.
Okay.
If Darren was going to be going up after 5 other people that were doing jokes about the event, then I'd be going super deep. But he's the only person doing it, so you can get all the low-hanging fruit.
So here's the last question then, based upon that, because you may be at an event where you may be the keynote speaker, but the company president or somebody else does some humor about the location. Would it be wise then to at least prepare a couple 3 levels deep in case somebody else hits surface? Or do you then switch your strategy and say, okay, my goal is to find as many commonalities between the location, the city, the event, the discomfort of the weather, and the ride from the airport. I mean, do I go broad or do I go deep or do I do both? Kind of a
Yeah,
little both.
you just bring up you bring up weather, which is also like the safest topic ever. You know what I mean? So like everybody's experienced it. If we're in Las Vegas, it's super hot. If we're in Spain, maybe it's rainy or it's beautiful and sunny and all this stuff. And you can make jokes about you guys are 6 miles from the beach, but you'd rather talk about brake pads over there, like something like that. So
Right.
it's you keep it. What I guess the quickest answer to your question, Mark, is you should always have enough stuff so that you can drop jokes if somebody hits an area.
Okay.
So, and Darren, obviously he did 10 minutes on the custom jokes. That's a lot. I mean, I was really like, that's a lot. That takes a lot of courage to do because you don't know if it's going to work.
Right. And we don't suggest that if you're new to this. If you
No, I
3 minutes, and here's the cool part, you're not brought in to be funny. However, if you can add some great levity at the beginning, especially if it's about them, the location, the industry, it's about them. So it doesn't
it's about them.
have to be hysterical. If you're brought in as a comedian, now it has to be hysterical. So we're just looking for that connection and to also show, hey, they did their homework.
Yeah, comedy is generally all about the speaker, but in the speaking business, it's about the audience. So when you make the connection and you're like, hey, we're all here together, and comedians do this too, by the way. It's why comedians open their acts with great to be here in Spain. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. They're trying to make a connection.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't think of it that way. They for them, they're like, I just need to get a laugh.
Well, last thought before I go, and I will go, is this. Darren, you gave a nugget just now. You said it's good to use levity at the beginning. Start them off feeling a level of comfort, relaxation, and smiling. So that's really good. And using common, like the weather, is one good way. Not nice weather, but use a creative line about the weather. Again, we want to be unique, we want to be unforgettable, but being aware of our surroundings is a helpful way to do that. But the key is to get it done early enough to build that rapport, make that connection, and then serve the audience well. For me, this has been wonderfully educational. I'll see you guys soon. Listeners, family, and friends, I don't often do this, but I got to speak somewhere else in about 7.28319 minutes. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, Mark.
So Chris, sometimes I get a little overconfident and I did a few jokes. So for everyone, these are a couple jokes that I wrote there in the moment that Chris had nothing to do with, because Chris, I say that disclaimer because some of them hit and some of them didn't hit, but I don't want to put the ones that didn't on you. Your writing is genius. By the way, the best investment I've made is to hire you to help me with this. This is critical. So
if anything, it just gets you thinking about all the possibilities. So when you get there, like if I had known you were going to be speaking in a tent, I would have written you a bunch of jokes about being in a tent. It's just funny.
Yeah, and for everyone, it was a tent, but this was like a first class tent. This was
it was a beautiful tent, but it doesn't matter. You can still make fun of it.
You can definitely make light of it for sure, but I don't want anybody to think it was this, dilapidated thing. It was amazing. The AV inside it was freaking better than most conventions. So Chris, one of the things they said in the opening, this was super helpful. I'm an outsider. So one of the best things I did is, and it was actually the event planner Manuel's idea, is he introduced me as the outsider in the opening at lunchtime on Tuesday. I'm speaking Wednesday night. And he said, just want to introduce you to this guy, Darren. He's an outsider. He's not from our industry. He's going to walk around and ask you questions. Please answer them. And on Wednesday night, you'll find out why. So it was great that he set up curiosity.
They teased it. Yeah, they teased it. Yeah.
Curiosity without expectation. So one of the things he said in the opening, like, we're at this amazing mansion and they warned us that there are lemon trees inside of the mansion. lemon
Wow.
trees inside of the mansion. They said it is illegal to pick the lemons. So Chris, this was just that one of those
That's funny.
I immediately went over to the head wait staff. I said, tomorrow afternoon, I need a lemon. And so
That's funny.
when I walked out there, I had a joke that I thought of in the instant, which I shouldn't have done. It was all right, but I look like Manuel, who is the president of this. Like, we look like brothers. So I kind of threw out a joke that was like, okay, like I look like him. I'm like, hey, yeah, the mystery is I'm his brother. That was like, eh. Then I pulled out my lemon and I just threw it up and caught it and threw it up and caught it and threw it up and caught it. I'm like, okay, who did it? Who picked the lemon? I'll play the clip, but you'll see that it takes them or you hear that it takes them a second to really get it.
In the audience a little bit, please. So I want to know who. I want to know who. Who picked in lemon? All right, I thought that would have been funnier. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'll meet you where you're at. All right.
Okay, so that didn't go great, and that was on me.
Did anyone get on the wrong bus?
This was a joke. This is the joke that they suggested that I let my gut tell me, because they had these buses going to the event site. Everyone was staying at 3 different hotels. So they had buses going to the event site, and they said, make sure you get on the right bus or it's going to take you to the wrong hotel. My problem, Chris, was they said, oh, you should say that, because I asked them in the little pre-meeting with the client, I said, did anyone get on the wrong bus? And they said, no. So now it's not really relevant that they got on the wrong bus. So you'll ask the question and like crickets. I should have never brought it up because it wasn't emotionally relevant.
Yep.
Okay, these are questions. Let's talk here. You want to have fun? This
So I used it as like a save line opportunity. So that was on me.
involves participation.
And then I took your joke on the battery, the idea that we had on the battery, and I tied it into Las Vegas. Again, this one.
Okay, no. I'm from Las Vegas. I am American. I apologize right up front. I'm sorry. Don't. And I do have all my original parts, so I'm sorry for that too. Raise your hand if you've been to Las Vegas before. Yes. All right. If you haven't been, you would love the real Las Vegas because it's so hot and so dry that car batteries only last 6.5 months. All right, you got to think on some of these. Yeah, all right. Yes, it's so.
So that kind of turned into a little applause, but it took him a minute. But then I just had fun with it.
How far into your presentation were you when you did that?
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So I haven't done this in a long time. So I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants, and I tried to do more than maybe I should have. But 2 that really worked is one of the things you and I teach in the humor boot camp is the redefining and connecting it. Again, these were things that I wrote in the moment. And one was about the location. So what we're teaching you is that you can make light of the location or the situation. We always teach people, what are they frustrated about? Well, it was unseasonably cold in Spain last week where we were. So check this out.
From the Catalan word meaning chill.
Well, I'm going to back up.
Yes, it's amazing. You may not know this, but Finca Mas Solas, and I'm sure I pronounced that incorrectly, is actually from the Catalan word meaning chilly at night. And you may not know this, but sieges is actually a Spanish word, loose.
So I'm going to set this up that because they were going from the buses to the event site, these are all CEOs. A lot of them didn't want to wait around. So they all went for taxis. Well, but many of them went for taxis. But this is a smaller town. So this one really hit. and I figured it would.
And you may not know this, but sieges is actually a Spanish word, loosely translated means not enough taxis.
Yeah, you made a connection. You made a observation that everybody else had made, so everybody feels smart.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever what do I want to say? Whenever laughter turns into applause, it's also agreement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Chris, I wanted to set up the ADI joke that you wrote because that was probably the
Sure.
biggest laugh that I got, the acronym.
Yeah. You want me to set up my part?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I knew you'd like this. Is there were a couple of things when you're writing for somebody else, you just got to remember it's not you doing it, it's them doing it. So, you try to make you try to customize with their voice or their preferences or things like that. I tried to make some connections to Las Vegas because I knew Darren was from Las Vegas. And again, it's that fish out of water thing. And I also know that Darren likes acronym jokes. So I knew that if I wrote a decent acronym joke, that he definitely want to do it. So I'm sure that when you saw it on the page, you were like, oh, good, an acronym joke. I knew it would make you feel comfortable and it establishes trust between the writer and the person performing. So that's an acronym joke. Basically, I should point out is when ADI is the acronym. It means what? Auto part distribution, something, industry, something like that. So the joke is that it stands for something else, and the something else is the punchline. So anyway, that's where we started.
And so it's a simple joke, again, when you can tie into the relevancy and a frustration or something, in this case, that's emotionally great. And by the way, when I ran it by the event planner, Manuel, he laughed, like slapped his knees, like, I'm going to hear about this for years.
Yeah, that's great.
That's how I knew
That's
I
great.
had to do it. And then real quick too, this one again was.
It also sets up that he has to pay something in perpetuity.
Yes.
The
audience loves. The audience loves. And then they did these 20-minute, I'll show this. This again, was one of mine. I brought it up. Now I got to do it. Where they actually had these little modules. Each country had their representatives in there, and they had these conversations every 20 minutes. So it was kind of like speed dating, but sometimes they were really tough, deep business meetings. And so I asked Manuel again, is this okay to mention? So now these are heads of companies and heads of distributors, like working it out, that if they have some challenges, they got to work it out, and now they're face to face. It's not the people at the lower levels talking. This is the heads of the companies. So anyway,
people I got to talk to one-on-one really made me feel welcome, especially since my brother set me up as the mystery guy. And I just want to report this, that as a result of your speed dating, you know what I mean? No. No, when you're sitting and talking with each other. Okay, all right. Sorry, joke's on me. I'm happy to report that there were no fist fights. So there you go. There's a bonus right there. ADI, I was thinking about this, and I'm watching you guys, and I'm like, what does ADI really, really stand for? And I thought about it, and I think it's all drinks included. Yes. And everyone's like, no. Do you know how much that costs? All right.
Yeah, it's a party joke. It's like, hey, we're all here. We're all having a good time. Some people are waking up for their breakout sessions in the morning and they're hungover and all that other stuff. And it's clicking into some kind of truth in the room. I knew that one was going to kill, I think. I just had a feeling.
So even if you just did your homework. You got to know them better. By doing your research, you're going to understand the industry better. And maybe it ties to a point. Maybe it's not even something funny. But doing a few bits of humor like this, you don't have the pressure that you're supposed to be funny. So even like a couple of those, I like one of those that we just played there, I didn't get a big laugh. That was on me. That was not on Chris. And I went with it in the moment, but it's okay. It's an acknowledgement. It's about them. So this isn't quote unquote your content. And one of the things that I always do, Chris, is I say, before we get started, and if you are watching the YouTube version, you can see, if you're listening to audio, when I do custom humor, I have black backgrounds, not branded, and it's black backgrounds with white lettering. And that's almost like to create the mood. And then when I go to my content, then I go to my regular color branded slides. So it's like an emotional shift.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
And
I thought it was smart that you set up a lot of your jokes on the slides because there were prompts for you.
mhm.
So it's a little bit of a cheat sheet. It also, a visual will can add to a punchline, all that stuff. So it was smart.
Yeah, it definitely was my cheat sheet for sure. And it also, for some of them, now remember, these are people in different countries, all CEOs from all different countries throughout Europe. So some of them, many of them, English is their second language, not their first language. So
Yeah.
the visual, like when I had said Finca Mas Solaris, like I can't pronounce it, they might not know what I'm talking about. It's the property that we are on, but when I put up the visual, it becomes clearer. When I set up the definition jokes, they can read it as well as hear it, and then I show the punchline. So I've never actually done that before, Chris. This was like just a new invention to give me confidence.
It was a good instinct. It was a good instinct for a multilingual audience where some people are auditory learners, some people are visual learners. So if you're doing that, you've got them covered on both.
Yep, definitely. It was like you said, it was a gut instinct, and from now on, I will always do that.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Chris, I want to respect your time, and I have to jump into the event that Mark's speaking at too. What I love about this, and Chris, I got the question yesterday. You and I teach a humor boot camp, and we teach an event called Find the Funny. So if you want to learn the techniques behind doing this, we got Find the Funny coming up at the end of this month. When you listen to this podcast, the end of this month, just go to stagetimeworkshops.com, stagetimeworkshops.com, and you can see our schedule coming up. So Find the Funny is about uncovering humor in your stories. Humor Boot Camp, which we're doing in the fall, late summer, early fall, that is about writing jokes. So I got the question yesterday, Chris, what's the difference between Find the Funny and Humor Boot Camp? Find the Funny is about storytelling and uncovering the humor in storytelling. And I love Linda Marie said yesterday, Chris, we were on our other event, and she said, Find the Funny changed the way I tell stories. If you don't go to Find the Funny, you're missing out. That's great. Just wanted you to know she said that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that workshop, the one this month is it's 2 days on humor and storytelling and 1 day on the absolute essentials of storytelling, which a lot of people, I mean, to me, I love teaching it because it's about the craft and not the art. The humor is really more about art, and storytelling and structure is about the craft of it. And the craft's super important. If you don't know how to build the foundation, humor's paint. You're just putting paint on a dilapidated house. So, I mean, I love that course. I think it's super important. And then Humor Bootcamp is really about technique, like joke writing techniques and advice and best practices for doing humor. And we would like all this location stuff that Darren's talking about. That's a Humor Bootcamp topic.
Yeah, I really want to back up. If you're serious about this, if you're a high-level speaker, Chris McGuire is my secret weapon. Hire him. Like, you can learn the process. Like, we can teach you to fish, or you can just hire Chris and he'll hand you fish. Like, highly recommend. So Chris, how would they find you?
You can find me at laughwithchris.com is my landing page. You can set up a free discovery call. We could talk about what your goals are, see if we're a good fit. You could also, if you want to test out what it is that I do, I have a Substack. It's letstalkfunny.substack.com. And I do, it's a newsletter. I do it for like an audience of speakers. And it's about humor and storytelling for speakers. And I talk about different strategies, techniques, and put up funny stuff every week.
Nice. Well, Chris, best investment I made was investing in you to help me and get me there deeper and more quickly than I had time to.
Well, I'm glad you got out alive. You did a good job. If you do something like that and you're talking for 10 minutes of stuff you've never talked about before, and you're graceful when it doesn't land exactly, but you're making connections, you can hear them with applause breaks and stuff like that and big laughs, then you did a great job. We could talk more in depth about whether you should have done 10 minutes, but you certainly, by the time you got ready to talk about the more serious stuff or inspiring stuff, you've already established trust with that audience.
Yep. And if for you, again, listening to this, if I just did the ADI joke and then went into my content, that would have set me up and I would have done better just because of that one joke, period. Because now it's like, oh, he knows us. The trust is built. The rapport is built. And I've been observing what's going on. I invested in you and I invested in being there for a day and a half to see what was going on. It was my observation that saw the taxi thing as the opportunity. So invest in time, invest in Chris. If you'd rather join us or do both, please check out stagetimeworkshops.com. Chris, final thoughts on getting more laughs.
I mean, just in general, just remember you have take the opportunities. So if the most important thing is to have something at the top of your speech that connects you with the audience. It could be a question, it could be some kind of dramatic hook, it could be a story, but humor will connect you faster. So it's worth taking a little bit of a chance, taking a little bit of time, thinking about what everybody in the room is experiencing, which is you're all in the same place. If you're traveling, you might be fish out of water, whatever. And it's a great opportunity to be like, I'm like you. And that's all you want to do is get them to feel like you get them.
So check out laughwithchris.com, do a free discovery call with him and he'll talk it through with you, and or join us at Find the Funny coming up to the end of the month or Humor Bootcamp at the end of the summer. Chris, thanks for being here. We'll see you next week.
Hey there, this is Darren LaCroix. Thanks for checking out this podcast episode on YouTube. If you want all of them, not every one is on YouTube, check out your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode. Keep being a sponge so you can be unforgettable.
Check out StagetimeUniversity.com, where good presenters become unforgettable.